Yeah, so yeah, same like a little
Twitter.
introduction. I am Ronan, known as Wigawag. Yeah, this is my Twitter. And I have also a website that I did not update it for a while, ronan.eth.link or .eth if your browser support it. Yeah, it's my blog. I share some of the things, but it's not much there. But yeah, today I would like to talk about two things, which one of them is Ardat deploy, which is just a repo, no website for it. And I will go through hopefully some of the features. There's quite a lot in it. When it was created in the first place, it was its own tool. So it was kind of a competitor of Ardat and Truffle. And then I discovered that and I was sold. And so basically the idea was, how can I make this tool, the things that I have in this tool, back to Ardat? So I created this plugin that have basically all the features of the previous tool and more now. And one of them is the ability to deploy, to set up a deployment and to use them in test, and as well as in when you deploy. So there's no difference between what you test and what you deploy. So it's great for test, and it also means you don't need to duplicate your code. So I bear with me with how I will do this tutorial kind of thing, but I looked at the Ardat tutorial, and it's something I wanted to do for Ardat deploy. So the idea that if you follow me along, no, this is not the one. So yeah, so I created this repo, which have a README, which is basically a tutorial, and it's basically a copy, like a fork of Ardat tutorial. So some of it is very basic. It's how to install Node.js for the various operating system, etc. So I won't go into this detail, but we could create a repo basically to, yeah. So that's what I wanted to do here. Like not there. I created a few tabs here because I want to showcase different stage without having to build them from scratch right now. But the tutorial might help. I don't know the audience, but maybe it could also be helpful to start from scratch to see where Ardat deploy basically get added and what does it bring. Yeah. So I basically do this basic stuff. I mean, I just wrote it today, so hopefully nothing will, everything will go smoothly. So like this is the basic of Ardat, and yeah, and then so again, like yeah, nothing really fancy. We could, so the only difference with the original tutorial, at least at the beginning, is that we use TypeScript and not JavaScript. It's something I'm myself used to, and that's kind of where I wanted to showcase it. But okay, so I forgot which folder I used. Okay. Yeah, so basically this install whatever is needed, and you have to create ardat.config.ts, and so this is the basic stuff of it. Ardat deploy, and then we have to install more stuff. I could have done that in one step, but I wanted to follow along how it was set up for Ardat. I install basically Ardat deploy ethers itself, chai ethers, mocha, quite a few things on top of the original tutorial. Some of them is mostly for TypeScript. For them, like Chai Ethers is actually Waffle, but where I stripped out all the dependency to Ganache, which was some time to the thing, which usually I don't need. I use a Chai Matcher. It's basically a fork of it, faster to download basically. So yeah, I set up this, and I will edit this file now to add Ardat deploy and Ardat deploy ethers. So it's just basically going through that. Here it tells me as the thing is being installed, VS Code is not aware of Ardat deploy, and so it tells me there is a new thing that it doesn't understand. And this new thing is a named account. So that's one of the things that Ardat deploy give you. It gives you the ability to name accounts. And the idea is that you are recommended to never use indexes. You are recommended to use names for example, if you want to give you deploy your contract, you want to say that this address will receive the supply of all the coin, for example. You can name the account like owner, for example. Here we usually, I mean myself, I usually use the deployer name for whoever is the account that will deploy, and set it to the index 0. So the first account is basically the deployer, and I can use it then in my test or etc. So and another advantage of it, you will see that later, is that all the accounts that have not been named. So when Ardat startup, you have 10 or 20 accounts, and in your test, you want usually to test things with accounts that have nothing. And the nice thing about named account is that you are sure that all the accounts that are not named don't have anything. So these also help for testing, because you don't want to have a false positive because you actually didn't realize that you were using an account that was already be given something. So yeah, I guess I need to save and we will catch up. The warning, but okay, let's continue because I think there is things missing. Yeah, we have to create a tsconfig file because of some options that are required, and also because we want to add the deploy script that we'll see later as part of the thing to be type checked. So we just create tsconfig file. Yeah, that's basically it. And so now we can yeah, so one thing that I usually do, so the default in again, I mean, you are free to do what you want. I like to name put my contract in the source folder instead of a contracts folder. This is mainly because usually I put this in a monorepo setup where already the whole Ardat folder is part of a contract folder, and then there is a web folder, and then there is another folder. So inside the contract, the source are the contracts. So this means I need to add the configuration to the Ardat config to basically make Ardat know that the source will be there. And we follow the tutorial again, and this is basically again from the original Ardat tutorial, same token contract. It's a basic token that doesn't implement any standard, but just have the functionality of transferring token to some other, etc. So we have that, and now we can just do yarn that compile, and obviously you can and you can obviously add an npm script here to it's taking a bit more time than if you were using JavaScript, but it should get going. And there is. So then the next step we'll talk about the deploy script. So we finished to deploy the contract, and now that puts this thing into a folder like a cache artifact folder. But we can ignore these things. Yeah, I mean, I have this thing somewhere else already done. But yeah, basically you can artifact, cache, node module, etc. Anyway, I don't have a Git setup anyway, but yeah, so we have this compiled, and if we go back to the tutorial, we now can write deployment script. I mean, if you are coming from Truffle, they are similar to the migrations, and I will explain this in detail, basically, because this is the core of RDAT deploy. So I create a folder called deploy. This is the default. You can also configure it to something else. And then I will call, okay, 001 deploy. They are executed in order, alphabetical order. So usually you use this convention. But actually, RDAT deploy allow you to have order a different, more complex order. You could even create folder, and there is a way. There is a way to basically order them independently of the alphabetical order, and this is based on the tags and another feature that. I mean, let's see later where we can go. But for now, basically, it's a deploy script. So I import some types, and just to ensure a nice type safety like type completion on the deployment script. And what deploy bring, so by navigating to the RDAT config here, we'll talk about this one later, RDAT deploy headers, but RDAT deploy bring several fields to the RDAT runtime environment. One is the deployment field, and the other one is get them account. There is also a few other, we might have time to discuss them. And the deployment field is an object that contains multiple functions. One of them is a deploy function. The get named account basically give you these things here. So, for example, I have a token owner that I mentioned here. I will put it to be the second account, for example. But I could be it could be anything. And if you see the token contract, actually it's slightly different than the one from the RDAT tutorial. In the original ones, the owner was the message sender of the constructor, so the deployer. In my practice, I never do that. I always consider that contract should be configurable. So I added that as a constructor parameter. So when you deploy, you can specify now who will be the receiver of the total supply here. And so this is expecting the two fields to be part of the get named account, and that's why I had to add them here. And then I can just use that function deploy. Function deploy accepts a parameter, which is the name of the deployment. But if by default, it will look for a contract, an artifact. If you know like the nomenclature of RDAT, the token, the artifact will be the contract name in the Solidity. But you can override it. For example, if I wanted to call it my token, then it will look for a my token contract in the Solidity source code. And in that case, it won't find it because the token is called token. But I can specify it with a contract option, and I can say token. So it allows you to, for example, deploy multiple of the same contract with different names and maybe with different arguments. And you can also pass directly the ABI and the bytecode if you add it a different way. So there is few options here as it's leave it to token. And the from is basically who is going to deploy the transaction. So here's the deployer, and the argument is basically the argument to the constructor. And the log option allow you to log out the information, but it doesn't do that during when you do a test. So it's just a convenience for when you deploy, when you want to see the address in the console most of the time. The tag feature is basically a mechanism by which you can give some kind of ID to the script, but there are more than ID. So you can have multiple deployment script with the same tag, and it allows you, for example, to say, I want to deploy that particular tag, and it will look for it. But more importantly than that, and I guess we could have dependencies. So I could have a list of different tags here. Maybe token was dependent of the DAI contract or whatever contract that I used before, and then I could be sure that let's do that. Let's call it token 2, or I guess token 0, whatever, and could say token 0 equal await, and here I can use the deployment get, and I will say token 0. This obviously by itself will not work because I don't have any token 0 deployment. So I will need to create a new, let's say 0 because I want to happen. Actually, that's what I mean. The order doesn't really matter as long as you have tags. So for example, I could say token 0, and I could copy that thing, and except this one don't have any dependency, but it's called token 0 and tracks. And the tags will be, so the tags is really the thing that is used. This could actually be called differently. It's called token 0, and in the deploy token, then I will have to use that. So the tag is not the tag used in the dependency, and the tags used in the tags field is not the name of the contract. And then this, I could use it. For example, I could say that this particular contract is actually the owner of the supply or whatever. Well, let's keep to what it was, because the other part of the tutorial depend on it. But that gives you an idea how you can organize your deployment script and have dependency between each other. If, for example, yeah, I mean, actually, let's. So one thing, once you have your deployment ready, you can call the RDAT deploy function, which by itself will go through all the deploy script and basically deploy all of them based both on the alphabetical order and the dependency. So even though token 0 was first in alphabet, even though token was in the first alphabetical order, RDAT deploy figured out that there was a dependency to it, and that dependency was token 0. So token 0 got deployed, and then token could be deployed before. If I remove that dependency, then RDAT deploy will fail because it will deploy token. It will fail. Yeah, basically, it will try. No deployment found for token 0. This was because it was trying to get this here while the script for it was not executed. When I did the deploy here, it's actually deploy on no network. It deployed on the default network, which is RDAT network, which is an in-memory network. So when this finish, there is no trace anywhere. So by default, for that network, RDAT deploy do not save any information neither on disk, because there is basically no point to it. You could override it if you wanted to, but, and so I guess I covered already that part. Yeah, for testing. So we are going to create test, and again we will see here how it differ from the other from the original tutorial. So I create test folder, and then I can create a new file, token.test.ts. And let's copy that thing. And yeah, I mentioned a few things. So I have this function, utility function. So it's called child setup. You can it could be maybe a plugin actually in some extent. It's that's what Waffle actually, that Waffle do behind the scene. This one allow you to add more configurations. So if you have other child matcher you wanted to use, you basically add them there, and basically to get access to them, you do that child setup. So it's the way I do myself, but obviously there is different way of doing it. Then to execute the test, I mean, yeah, basically so I will be able here to explain the difference of traditional. At no point here I need to deploy the token manually. So now we have our deploy script ready. I can simply, the only thing I need to do is to basically call the fixture function on the deployment field that is provided by r.deploy, and this fixture accepts an array of tags. There is few reasons to do it. You could also do fixture without tags, and you will get basically the same result in most cases. In that case, you will deploy every script. You will go through all of them. But for optimization purpose, it's recommended to use tags. So, for example, obviously, when you run the whole suite of tests, then it doesn't really matter because all of them will be executed. But when you want to run one particular test, it is a bit pointless to actually deploy things that are not even used. And the tags and dependency system already ensure you that if you target a specific tag, you know you will get all the dependency deployed as long as you configure them correctly. So this means that once this line is executed, you know that you can access your token contract already deployed, already configured, and you don't need to duplicate yourself during the test. So similarly, we can access the named account in the test. And yeah, so here I access the token owner and I just check if he have the supply. So that's pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, one thing I didn't mention here is the get contract, ethers.get contract. This is the reason why I added that deploy ethers, which is a plugin that is actually a fork of r.ethers, ethers, and it's only a fork because I couldn't make it work by adding extra features yet, but this is something r.eth have been working on, and it's almost ready for me to be able to change it to be an extension to the r.ethers plugin. This will be better when it's that, like this, we can continue using the r.ethers, and I don't need to maintain that part of the work. But for now, you need to use r.deploy ethers instead of r.ethers. And then what it does on top of what r.ethers do is it adds this extra function called get contract, which you just need to pass the name of the contract. You don't need anymore to pass an address, which you have to otherwise, because r.deploy already know about your deployed contract and how they are named. So I could also access token 0 here if I wanted to. And so now if I execute the test, I can just do that test, it will basically get them and yeah, execute. Yeah. So we continue with that. I mean that it kind of explain what I just said with more detail as well. Again, it's coming from the original tutorial. We can also, yeah, this function accepts another parameter. Here, of course, I am reading only. If you notice, I just read. So there is no really need to pass a different address here. But if you pass an address here, then the contract will, whatever function you call will be called as if it was. So with Ardent you have to manually connect the contract, set it up, set a signer, etc. With Ardent Deploy, you can just pass the address you want when you instantiate the contract. And if we continue, so now we go, so this is a full, okay. So yeah, actually we are going to see usually also, again, this is some utility function that I had, which I found really useful for writing tests. This one, so I create that into another folder in the test, actually, utils, and then, oops. And it adds some, I don't go into the detail how it works, but I will show you in the nice API, I feel that it results in, and we'll go through that if we copy the full test suite. So this is the full test suite for this particular token. Again, all is in TypeScript. It adds the comment about what it does. But let's see, for example, so the way I set it up usually that it's, again, this is some style that I don't know if everybody will agree with, using Mocha. Mocha has these hooks before each, etc. I personally don't like them because they force you to have a global let instead of const. Because the before each will have to basically store the value that it creates, and the only way the tests themselves have access to it is that they are not in the same scope. And so you have this global let, which we give you the risk that you might modify one of these during a test and have consequence on another one if you don't update it neither in the before each. So the way I get around the problem is that I create a setup function, or usually I name them based on what they do. This one basically deploy, make sure the deployment are set up, and then it creates some object to make it easy to create tests. So it does two things. It will do the setup, and sometimes, I mean, you could also set send token to some particular user, etc. And you could have a user with token and a user without token. So like this in your test become very readable. You have user with token, send token to user without token, and then you expect the user without token to get token, etc. Or the reverse. And like you want to check if a user without token cannot perform send token, for example. But here we just continue with what we got here, and we create an object that contains the contract, Ethers contract, and then we also call setup users on the get unnamed account. So okay, so there is two things. We have the get named account that we are familiar with, and the get unnamed account. This one, as I mentioned before, it regroup all the tokens, all the accounts that were not named. And I found them very useful, as I mentioned in test, because you want to be sure in your test that you are using accounts that have not been touched. We know that they have ethers, and we usually want them to have ethers. If you want an account without ethers, then you have other way to go with it. Can you play with me? Okay. Okay. So yeah, where was? Yeah, so I was on this test file. Yeah, so the get name account gives you kind of a list of users that have been not touched, and we call setup user by passing the contract. So we get an object. The user's object are basically an object that contain access to all the contracts. So I think we'll see. Let's say, well, for example, if you want, so we get the token here, which is basically the read-only contract. The user is an object that you will be able to use to perform action on behalf of them. And similarly, the token owner is such a user. And this user object have the contract as a field. And so it becomes very easy to read, like token owner.token.transfer. So the token owner will call token transfer function and give it to the user 0. And then we check the user balance matches. So that's kind of a pattern I use for writing tests. And now we should have the whole test basically running. Once we have that, yeah, so we have this console log. I will skip that part. And then we can now use Arda deploy to deploy on a network. So the way it's done, it's the same as I showed when you were using the in-memory network, but instead you just specify the network you want to. Again, another utility function I use, an utility function that I use is for the networks and basically the networks for the account and the URL, and so because to make it easy to set up a new account. So all of this tooling, I have this in my template. So I have a template to get started just on the smart contract side, and this utility is part of it. To allow you to do things like so if you go in the RDAT config, now add a network. The network field here. I set up Rinkeby, and my utility function has these two functions called node URL and it's not showing off, but and then what that does is that now in that function it will read from the .env file and will get you so you can configure using different environment variable. So one of them is a default one, it's not URI, but first you will check if you have a specific one. So if we were to create a .env file, we just need to say like node URI equal actually I'll copy that from something in, but basically you need to just copy this stuff over. So I'm going to copy that tutorial. And so now I have basically the Rinkeby environment variable setup. So this includes the mnemonic and so if we remember, we just did yarn rdat deploy. Let's see if it works again. And so actually, okay, so I missed. Okay, I know now what's the problem. I forgot the LC. Okay, good. That's a good thing about TypeScript, but I didn't believe it. So yeah, this deploy it deploys these two contracts on the in-memory network. So now if I wanted to put it on Rinkeby, the only thing to do is that. And it will do the same thing on Rinkeby network. And on top of that, because it's not in memory, Arda deploy will also remember what you do here. As this time is flying, I hopefully have time to showcase a bit of the other thing, but we can. Yeah, it should not take too long. But I think that cover most of the basic of getting started with Arda deploy. Yeah, except Arda deploy also, because it contains all the information about the deployment, it was easy to add a verification to the contract, like, and you can execute at any time. There is plan to with Sourcify, so it supports two methods of verification, Sourcify or Etherscan. With Sourcify, it's actually possible to let Sourcify automatically compile it by just deploying the metadata on IPFS. I have planned to do that, but I will always make it an option, because sometimes when you work on something, you don't want to, especially on the testnet, you don't want to reveal the project until you are ready. So depending on use case, you might want to always have this manual step. So, but basically, to make it verify and Sourcify, you just do this RDAT network Rinkeby Sourcify, and it will go through each contract that have been, and you will verify. So now they are already verified, and I can do the same with Etherscan, but I need to get myself an Etherscan API. I have it somewhere else, but yeah, it's the same scenario. You basically call Etherscan verify, and you get there. And now we can see we have this deployment Rinkeby folder. It contains few things. So it contains the two important things is the two token contract. It contains the address, the ABI, and then a lot of other stuff. RDADeploy try to save you as much information as it can. So there is a lot of things here, but yeah, the two requirement is address and ABI. But for verification, for example, it will also need the args and the metadata. The metadata is the exact input that is needed to compile this contract, and that's what Sourcify used. Now there is also the Solk input. This was needed because at some point Solidity had a bug where the verification will fail with the metadata and will succeed if you specify the actual input of the compiler. And so this is included as well. The content here will contain, the sources here will contain all the source code, even the ones that are not required to compile token.sol, so the token transfer. Yeah, so I guess I'll give you an overview of RDADeploy, but I have a few things I want to show. So yeah, there is one thing you can do with and I would like more projects to use that, but obviously they will need to use RDADeploy. But the idea of external contract. So here it's Uniswap. Uniswap provide artifacts, and you can set them up like that, and then you have access to the artifact automatically. It also supports truffle artifact, so you can as long as they publish this kind of thing on npm, then you can just install the npm package and access them. So then you can deploy Uniswap. But Uniswap unfortunately doesn't provide their deployment script in a standard manner. So RDADeploy allow you to export your deploy script, and so another project can set up this external to actually deploy the whole project. So this is very useful. Like, for example, last time I wanted to put Compound into my project, but I always like to work offline. So I had to set it all up, and the documentation was about setting up a network, etc. It was not meant to be using your test, for example, and RDADeploy allow you to, if you have this deploy script, then you can easily share with any other, and anybody can re-execute your whole thing in a test just by having deployment.fixture. You can even set up tags, etc. So I cannot showcase here because Uniswap is only showcasing the artifact, which is already a great feature, but not as the other one is forking. So I guess that's where I need to showcase my template. So this template, now I started to create branch a bit like how Scaffold is, have branches for for different projects. I started to do the same here. So I have few branch showcasing different things. So yeah, the example. Actually, I have only one right now, but so this one is an example of going to open. So yeah, what it does, it has this AV test.ts. And again, Aave doesn't give you the deploy script because, I mean, at least not in a format that other deploy can understand. So I wanted to really test it. So what I did is that instead I used RDAT forking features, and yeah, and then it was kind of easy. But other deploy give you a lot of little things that make it easy. You just have to add them to the deployment. So this is a token for DAI. I just added the address and the ABI. Actually, I added some more stuff, I think, because I could copy it. I couldn't. It could also potentially be automated. I think they didn't. Yeah, they didn't publish the addresses and ABI as the ABI maybe, but they didn't publish the addresses or at least the deployment artifact as an NPM package. So I couldn't use the feature that I mentioned to you that other deploy support. So I had to manually add them. DAI, landing pool. Some of them actually are not needed in the test, but and then the test can simply say can access them. And if you look at it, it's inside the deployment mainnet because this is actually the mainnet addresses. And then when I execute the test, so this template contains a feature that actually call RDAT with some special argument. But to make it easy, I made it as easy as a fork test, and you specify which network you want, and then you execute. Actually, yeah, and so this will it has more in this repo. There is more tests than Aave test, but it will also execute your local test on mainnet. Oh, okay, I think I just need to do yarn because I was on another branch with different dependency, I think. But yeah, so it allows you to execute the whole test against mainnet. And also, I forgot to do something. I should specify a block number. I don't know if you use the forking feature about that. It's amazing, like to be able to do this thing. But for efficiency reason, you should always specify a block number so that the next time you execute it, so you will cache basically the data that you get. And so it's always better to do it. Especially, I mean, also you might. I will show you one thing that for the test I needed. Yeah, so let's see now. It should work. Oh, I forgot the block number. Okay, let's do. What block number we should use now? Let's go to idea how far we are now. Take a block that is also. You should not take a too recent block of the issue of the network is changing, forking all the time. But basically, I'm going to. So this test is going to take a while at the beginning because you will have to cache. So other take more time to cache all these things since I basically specify a block that I never specified before. And the test itself, it's basically simple. So it will take the balance of a special account, a DAI holder. The DAI holder is a named account. So you can find it in the RDAT config. It's a named account and it's a specific address. It's actually an address that I find that I have DAI. I needed DAI for the test, so I just went on I don't remember how I found it, but basically, okay, I had a timeout. I forgot. So yeah, for forking, you probably want to remove the timeout, at least for the first run. I think this one should pass, because at that point, if not, yeah, that's it. So the test is, so this die holder have die. So it approves the landing pool, the amount that we want to give. It will deposit that amount die, and then what we do, we increase the time, that's why the forking feature of Ardat is amazing, because you can test this kind of scenario. You want to know how much I will get on Aave after 1 year. That's what I put here, and then I need to do a mine. I still need to figure out exactly why it happened, but I guess EVS increased time doesn't actually mine, and so the Aave network don't have time to contract don't have time to actually get the calculation or something like that. And so now I get the withdrawal, and I actually expect. So my test is simply that I have more die than before. And we can actually log here how much I will get, those value that I put 100 Ether, 100 die. Oops, yeah, format Ether. It's something I need to add. And it will tell me how much. So this comes from a template Ethereum contract. It has fork test, fork dev as well. So I get $10 after 1 year. It has fork dev. So fork dev is you also specify the network, and what it does, it will actually create a local host node with fork mainnet, and with all these contracts deployed. All the contracts that you will add. So you could also test your contract as if it was on the mainnet, connected to real network, and you go on MetaMask and you can interact with your front end, etc., as if it was on the mainnet. Yeah, I will not showcase here. I don't have an example for that, but I wanted, I have a bit of time. I wanted to showcase Jolly Roger. So the other feature that Ardat deploy have is that it can watch. So actually, this one does watch. I think, yeah, ready for change. So I can already show when I run this dev mainnet, I can change any of the contract. Let's see, let's wait for him to get started. Yeah, so I can change any of the contracts. So this one, I will show two scenario, and then hopefully I have time to showcase how it works with so yeah, the source code. No, actually, I want to show this contract. So let's say I change the name. Complicated ERC720. Change detected. It will recompile and then redeploy. And here the deployment, you will actually deploy a new contract, and not and that's it. And here there is other data it's reusing, but the one that was deployed is this one, and it's a new contract. So we will have the new address. This is because I mean, that's what I guess you expect in general. Yeah, is because it just deploy, and by default it will only deploy if there is a difference. So this is also something I find very convenient, is to always have your deploy script to be idempotent, so you can always execute them, but they will, if there is nothing changed, nothing will be deployed. But now let's look at this deploy greeting. It has a special actually, okay, maybe, yeah, so this one uses proxy. Yeah, so there is a proxy field, and the proxy make it that it will use the proxy, and if you deploy a new version of it, the address will remain. So let's say I go to greetings and I change, add something here. On the change are detected, So while he was went too far. So executing change implementation, so the proxy is being called and with the function change implementation, which basically updates the implementation but keep at the same address. And that's really useful when you develop on the front end. So I'm building a game right now, and I was hesitating to showcase it right now, but yeah, basically where you are in a complex scenario on the front end, and suddenly you realize, oh, I want to be able to do this thing in the contract, but I cannot because the contract doesn't allow me. Oh, it's fine. I can just modify the contract to let me go through that step, for example, and then it will be fine. The address remains the same. I am on the front end doesn't change. You are still in that pop-up, very tricky pop-up that you manage to get there, and then you can just continue through the process by basically cheating. So this is very useful, and I can showcase that with a project I made this weekend actually on the NFT hack. So this is Jolly Roger basically. The whole project was built on Jolly Roger. The light version. There is again also Jolly Roger come into different branches. Each of them is a working template. There is currently the main one which come with a subgraph, another one which come with a normal like a project subgraph and a ERC721 subgraph, and another one which is a light version that I've used this weekend, which doesn't come with subgraph, which make it dependent of backends, and that's what I wanted to use this time. And the way you get started with Jolly Roger template is PNP. It uses PNPM. I find it very nice for working monorepo. Shell start. And shell start is basically, there is also the start version, but shell start will basically create different shell for you for all the components of the application. And all of them will be watching for changes and recompiling. So this one is actually for the command library. It's something I always like to have because it happens often that you work on your front end, you need some specific thing, but then you realize you also need them when you test your contract. And so I have this command library that can be used by both, and that the other component here. So this is Ganache here running with a 5-second block. So I like to test with kind of real-ish environment. So I like to have this 5-second delay when I develop on the front end. This one is a deployment of contract, and that's it. And this one is the front end. So currently it's erroring because it's waiting for the contract. So it cannot find contract.json, which is a file that it will be generated once all the contracts are deployed. And on that setup, I can go to the web app. Actually, one thing with MetaMask is that sometimes you need to clear your account. Actually, now it seems to be most common, and I forgot if I did it before. So it doesn't detect that actually it's a different network. I know Ganache, I think, generates different Genesis hash, but I don't know behind the scene. Okay, let me get working. Not sure why. So yeah, so that was the command I executed. It basically pop up all this shell and then seed it. So the seeding, I forgot what this. It probably creates some. Give it. I'm not sure what is going on. The front end, for some reason, got stuck. I can always execute it back here in the same console here. So yeah, something Jolly Roger how it differ from Scaffold is that it's more oriented toward like production ready. So everything is ready for IPFS. There is all the icon setup, and it it's built in Svelte. That's what I wanted to mention. So it doesn't use React, which I think a lot of people in the Ethereum community are familiar with. So here it's basically the project I built over the weekend, and it's I wanted to showcase what happened. For example, I can check so I don't have anything now. I can buy whatever mandala, like it's basically they are generated from Solidity itself, and let's say so this one is scrolled very fast, as you can see, and so all these images are generated from Solidity. So I use the token URI from the ERC-721 standard to then display the image. But to make it so fast, I couldn't just request every time dot token URI dot token. So actually on this page, they are generated in JavaScript to make it faster. So to show what I want, to be able to show what I want here, I go to this page, where in this page, actually, I use the token URI. And so now it's mean I can go to, so here we will look at this window. I can go to my Mandala token contract. And let's say I change the algorithm. So this is the internal token URI. I can, let's say I change that parameter. So I go over 20 instead of 40. And then what will happen, so in this thing, we are seeing the contract being redeployed, but the address don't change. So it means suddenly on the front end, suddenly a new image appear. And so this is any kind of thing you can do, like on the contract, you will be able to change anything on the front end. I could add function too. So I could add function, and I forgot if I have a feature. I forgot if I added it there, but I could. Yeah, I have all the modules. I have access to all the modules, so I can access the wallet module, which is the wallet module have a wallet parameter, and that wallet is actually the wallet of the user, and I can access to every contract. So I can Mandala token. And if I added a function, but I know that this have this URI, so I want to know the token URI of. So in the Mandala token is basically every mandala. There is a mapping between every mandala and every address. So you basically pass an address. The token ID is the address, and it should return me here the. Oh yeah, because it was never minted. Need to figure out the address of this one. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I have time here, but I could just show if I added a function here. Say hello. And returns a string memory. And I say hello. This function, the contract. Oh, I forgot external. And that contract, yeah, so there was an error because Solidity shouted at me. And then, so now I redeploy. So now I don't need to go anywhere. I can just there, and I can just say hello. So obviously here there is no UI, but I could definitely make an UI for it. And let's do the await. Oh, yeah, I should call static. So I'm calling a transaction to say hello, which will not do anything. So obviously that's not what I want. It's because I didn't set it to be view, but I can say I think it's called static, and then I will. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that cover most it. I mean, yeah, there is a lot more on Jolly Roger. Like one thing maybe I could show quickly is Jolly Roger h.link, and say something. Actually, let me get ready. I don't know. I need to get there. That took a while to support. Yeah, with Jolly Roger, you can also switch network at will. But so I could have shown that. But one thing is this. So let's say I will make this message. This is on Rinkeby. It asks me to connect. Okay, fine. I hope I have enough Rinkeby. That's it. Okay, cool. Yeah. So now, what? Yeah. Okay. So the reason why I do that, I want to confirm, but I also want to cancel, and it supports this kind of detection. So the transaction is go through. If I am lucky, my call to cancel will come first, but I think I was not lucky. Yeah, never mind. Okay, that's it.
Yay!
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Ronan.